I'm betting if I were to walk up to you with a gun in my hand and say, you don't deserve your life, and take your life, that would not be an acceptable thing. Not just not for you, but for society as a whole. Society would look at that and frown on it and say, nope, that's not appropriate, and would toss my butt in jail. And rightly so. I think it's correct. I think it's a proper thing to do. I want to talk today a little bit on deserving wealth on the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host, I'm Kurt, and today is Wednesday, the 2nd of June of 2021. And I welcome everybody who's here on Rumble, on YouTube, on the podcast. Thank you for coming along today. And I hope you enjoy what you get out of my little video today. Again, the subject of the video today is deserving wealth. I'm going to read my notes real quick just because that's something I've gotten into the habit of doing, and I think it kind of gives you a baseline for exactly where I am and what I'm going to say. If I decide you don't deserve your house, is that okay with you? I would hope not. Can you honestly tell a person who's managed to amass wealth that he or she doesn't deserve it? Arguing that people who have lived lives that were likely harder than you can imagine have made sacrifices that are immense isn't sufficient reason for them to deserve the results of what they've done is kind of lame. As well, remember this, most of those folks are not hoarding goods. How important is it that they collect currency or even gold or silver to themselves? By the way, smart rich people realize their wealth amounts to nothing if there aren't people out there who continue to make and keep them rich. All right, that's the end of my notes, so let's get on with it. If a person decides that you don't deserve your house or your life unless they have some claim on them that makes it so that they can say that that's true, I think generally pretty much everybody would agree that that's problematic, that that's not how that ought to work out. And I argue that the same thing is true for wealthy people's wealth. The fact that you look at that person and say, why does that person deserve all of that wealth? Well, how about this for an idea? How about that person went out there and did things that were unimaginable to you, worked untold hours, lived in crappy places, had old beat up cars, who knows what all they did, what all the sacrifices they made were to get where they got. Did all of these things to get there, right? And ended up being wealthy. Well, so now does that mean that you have the right to say they don't deserve that wealth, or is it even reasonable for you to say that about or to that individual? I don't think it is. Now look, I'm not saying that you can't make an argument that there are people out there who live miserably difficult lives, right? Whether it's digging ditches for a living and it's hard on them and they work back-breaking work all day long or whatever it happens to be is beside the point. Whether it's because they live on garbage dumps or because they live in favelas in Brazil. Whatever it happens to be, right? Whatever happens to be going on, the fact is lots of people live difficult lives and they don't get wealth out of it necessarily. And I'm not trying to argue that just because somebody lives a difficult life, they should automatically get wealth. When a person works towards a given end or set of ends that will ultimately make them wealthy, saying that that person does not have the right to amass wealth to themselves, in my mind, is a pretty ridiculous thing. What is it that makes you able or makes it reasonable for you to say that that person shouldn't have whatever they amass? All right? If you argue that a person stole from others, literally stole from others to gain their wealth, my argument to you is there are laws against that, and they should be dealt with according to those laws. But if you argue that a person said, I'll sell you a loaf of bread, here's a loaf of bread, give me $1. And you said, okay, here's your $1. And that person did that enough times that they ended up making huge amounts of money as a result. Is it honestly reasonable for you to tell that person that it's unacceptable for them to have gotten the wealth that they did through the means that they did? And I don't care if other people are involved. I'm going to talk in one of my upcoming videos about the concept of slavery and where everybody gets it wrong where that's concerned. Here's the thing. When a person has a business and a person says to people, I'm looking for people to work for me, and they go, oh, I'll do it, I'll come and work for you. right? And they go to work for that person, and they set the terms between them. The two of them say, well, I want to make this. Well, I'm not going to pay you that, but I'll pay you this. Is that okay? Can you work with that? Yeah, I can work with that. That's not slavery, okay? That's not slavery. You may think that the person is underpaying the other individual, but the fact is the other individual, particularly in this country, has other places they can go to make that money, okay? So they don't have to stay with Amazon. They don't have to stay with their local convenience store or their local gas station. They can go and find other places to be and other things to do where they can make more money. Now, I'm not saying that's an easy thing. You got to work at it. You got to, I literally am looking for, well, I'm not looking for, I've just been hired onto a position. But I literally have been looking for work for a couple months now, and I finally found something that will actually pay me sufficiently to make it worth my time to do it. Okay, and who will take me on and so forth, where we've agreed that we're going to work together. The point of all of this is really very simple. Just because a person gets rich, quote, on the backs of other people, doesn't mean that those other people don't benefit from what it is that he or she is doing for them and employing them. That's the first thing. The second thing is it's not some sort of slavery. And finally, it's not just the workers doing work. Somebody must direct, somebody must manage. And even if the person finds a manager to do the manager or director to do the directing, that's intelligence. And we can't call them bad for that. They're still throwing in the financing a lot of times. And even when they're not throwing in the financing, they are throwing in their reputation such that whatever loans were floated in order to get a business going, set that business on its feet. And that's on them. It's that simple. It's on them. You can say, well, if the business fails, they don't have to pay it back. Well, maybe they do and maybe they don't. But the reality is they're still the one who set everything up. I had a guy I worked for, and I didn't like the guy particularly well. It wasn't that he wasn't okay, it wasn't all that smart an individual. It's that he was a hothead. But you know what? I worked for him. He employed me. He paid me money to work for him. And ultimately, we parted ways. But the point is, it was his business. And what he decided to do with it was his business. And what he decided to do with any money that he made as the CEO of that company was his business. And if he got rich out of owning that business, which he probably did or will do, was his business. It is not for me to concern myself with whether or not he got rich off of that endeavor. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. Maybe it panned on him and maybe it went south. I know that there were certain ways that things didn't go well for him. But the fact is, maybe it went great and maybe it didn't. He took the risk. He gets the reward if there is a reward. He takes the failure if there was a failure. He took the risk. He didn't get where he got by cheating people. That's not what he was doing. And if he was, there are laws against that. Okay? Please don't tell me that a person who amasses a huge amount of wealth is in some way hurting you by holding that wealth. First of all, that's not true. You can't eat money, as they like to say. You can't eat money. Yeah, okay, you can buy things with that money. But the question is, what is that person doing with that money? What are they doing with it? And the answer is, whatever they doggone well please, but probably what they're doing is setting themselves to make it so that other people will be better off as a result. You can believe that or you can not believe it, but that's very likely what they're doing. That's what they probably did when they created their business in the first place, quite frankly. So this is kind of my take on things, and this is what I want you to understand. Look, I don't run around telling people you don't deserve your house, big or small, nice or ugly. I don't generally go around telling people you don't deserve your life. And I don't expect people to tell me I don't deserve what I have in my savings account or my checking account or in assets someplace. I don't expect people to do that. That's not appropriate and it's not acceptable. Please stop telling me this person doesn't deserve their wealth. Where did you come to that crazy conclusion? That's my question. All right, I need to go ahead and wrap up because it's getting to where I'll be up on 10 minutes very shortly here, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. This has been the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host. I am Kurt. Today is Wednesday, the 2nd of June of 2021. That means tomorrow will be Thursday, the 3rd of June of 2021. Thanks for everybody who's been here on Rumble, on the podcast, on YouTube, or anywhere else you happen to be joining me. The subject today has been deserving wealth, and tomorrow we're going to talk about complicated versus difficult. Kind of an interesting subject, and I think I'll enjoy talking about it. Hope you'll enjoy listening, and that will happen if you join me again tomorrow on the Daily Summation. The speaker on this edition of the Daily Summation is Kurt Schubert. This video was recorded on Wednesday, the 2nd of June of 2021. The Daily Summation is created for Kurt's Religion and Politics. Thanks for watching this edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I hope you found it entertaining or instructional, or maybe both. If you want to see more from me, you can go to blogs.kpschubert.com. That's blogs.kpschubert.com. I am on Twitter, Parler, and Minds.com. My handle on each of those is @kpschubert. That's @kpschubert. I have a Rumble and a YouTube channel. They are the Kurt's Religion and Politics channels on Rumble and YouTube. I have a Facebook page. The Facebook page is Kurt's Religion and Politics as well. I am on Patreon. If you want to support me, that's one of the better places you can do that. And you will find me at Kurt's Religion and Politics on Patreon. I have a podcast. The podcast is podcasts with an S, .kpschubert.com. That's podcasts.kpschubert.com. I think you should be able to find me with relative ease on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify as well. The best way I find to do that is to look for Kurt's Religion and Politics. You can try to use the Daily Summation. I find that it doesn't work as well as a general rule, but you can always try that. I'm glad to have you aboard today, and hopefully we will see you again tomorrow.